Okay, so we are here today to have a conversation about Dreamer, and Katie and I, are super excited that we actually are going to have this conversation with Mel, who I think is probably very familiar to everybody because we're all here because of her. She is the founder of this company that we all love and hired Katie and I to be where we are today. So
Well,
I
and let's be clear, the two of you are running the show and every which is a
yeah, but
dream, which is a dream of mine, by the way.
well, but I like to think that we are all here, whether it's the three of us talking or all the ladies who will listen to this, we are all here because of you.
Mhm.
Because you had a dream, because you had an idea, because you dared to dream, as your shirt says.
I love
Um,
I love the shirt. Get the shirt, ladies. It's awesome.
because you dared to dream about something for women, something that women didn't even know that they needed. Certainly me, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of women feel the same way that I do. And so I think it's only fitting that we have this conversation about Dreamer with you. Um, and so I'm actually really excited. And again, if this is the first time you're listening to one of these conversations, we're doing it because it's a chance to kind of let women in behind the scenes. We have lots of these conversations, and somewhere along the line we said, hey, maybe we should press record and let women into the fact that we do really spend time thinking about every decision we make and the products we bring forth and the programming that we do. So this is one of those times, and we're gonna have a conversation about Dreamer. And I think one of the best places that we could start is, where did the white flower come from? Where did Dreamer come from?
Yeah, great question, right? I will say, like, initially when thinking about messages that women would resonate with and that we had heard kind of just a steady flow with different narratives that women were talking about, or like in our friendships, things that kept coming up. And again, right, like these are, yes, initially like reasons why women run or women are motivated or feeling compelled to run, but then like the spill into life, which is really, I think, the shift that Fellow Flowers has taken. And I think that's a great shift and I love it. Initially, it was it was one of the original messages that we came up with right away. I think worthy was, fierce was right away. um Joy, authenticity with yellow was right away. And then I think dreamer was right there, as far as this idea of women dreaming beyond where they currently were in life, in whatever aspect. This idea of taking risks, this idea of betting on yourself, this idea of doing things without guarantee of outcome. And I think we had at that time also a lot of women who were trying new things, new distances, new races, getting into it for the first time. And it made a lot of sense. And it's interesting because I think it was around running, it wasn't as go-to or popular. I think it has evolved into, when you think about life and you think about where you are going with it, I think about the phase of life that I'm in. I relate with it far more now than I did probably when it was created.
Well, I wanted to know about that, about whether your relationship with Dreamer has remained static or if it has evolved over time. I mean, how do you connect with it now and years ago?
I mean, I used to grab the white flower for a 5 mile run when that felt like a big feat, right? I grabbed the dreamer flower when I was chasing Ironman goals, and it was all about like doing things for the first time. or doing something that I never even considered was in the realm of possibility for me. And a lot of that, I mean, I think it would have been like 2013, right? 2012, 2013, when these messages were new. And for the first 5 years, it was so much around physical goals. And I don't mean that in like a shallow way. Those were really, really challenging physical goals, and they required a ton of emotional reach and discovery. But the thing I was chasing was probably more around a physical endeavor, right? In some capacity. And sometimes I'd grab it for a big life thing, but a lot of it was physical. And honestly, I think about the last 5 years and just this exploration of who do I want to be when I grow up? And am I willing to take some big chances? Am I willing to have hard conversations? Am I willing to um, do things differently? Like choose myself in different ways. Like just all of that has been not related to running. And I think that my evolution with it, my attachment to it, and it's funny, like before this conversation, I was looking at the words of Dreamer and I'm like, oh goodness, to welcome new beginnings. I feel like that's all I've been doing is turning a page, turning another page, turning another page, starting a new chapter. And what's interesting is I always resonated like I will run through the fear to feel the joy. And if I was going to pick a line that maybe I've evolved, right? If I could, I wouldn't write this over. I'm not saying I would rewrite Dreamer Flower, but I want to have a conversation around like, I don't know that it's necessarily fear anymore for me. Right? Like,
What is it then?
I don't know, but it's this moment for me, like when I was reflecting on this and when I was thinking about this, like I will run through the fear. I think it's like I'm willing to be uncomfortable. Like I'm willing to be misunderstood.
Mm.
I'm brave enough to say what's in my throat and not keep it in. I'm going to do something that's selfish for me because I know the ripple effect of all the people I love will be better for it. Like I think that it's not so much like fear is a part of that, but I think so much about like taking chances and taking risks at this point in my life is really about like, am I willing to bet on myself? Am I willing to be misunderstood for what that looks like? Do I give a shit, frankly, what people think anymore? And just those decision-making factors, it's no longer like leap and figure it out on the way down. It's more of, I know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
As like the price of admission for dreaming, like I'm pretty aware of it at this point. And so it's more of sitting in that what you know is coming as far as discomfort, as far as I keep coming back to this idea of being misunderstood, but it's really like that era of I'm going to own this choice. I'm going to own this choice. And joy even looks different for me. I think a lot of it was my joy. And now I think of it as like a collective joy joy for my family. Joy. Yes, I think I'm still the origin. I have to be happy for my family to be happy, like all those factors. It just has gotten deeper as I continue to write the chapters, I guess, if that makes any sense.
So I think that makes perfect sense. And I think
I don't know
about,
what I just said, so maybe
no,
exactly.
well, no, but what I'm hearing you say is really a through line I think of some of your coaching and
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
a breakthrough and begin.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, when I think about, like, at least personally for me, like, my connection to Dreamer, like, I would say now this is, like, my go-to flower. Like, I love this flower, and my connection to it really came through Breakthrough and Begin, and like, listening to your coaching, listening to other women. And I'm wondering, do you think maybe your experiences with other women and what you were hearing from them, did that inform some of that thought process in
Yeah.
maybe that shift from not so much fear, but that willingness, that part about, to embrace the challenge and those new and
Mhm.
welcoming new beginnings.
Yes. I feel like I just wrote down the word willingness, right? Like being willing, like getting in the arena, knowing you might get your ass kicked, but knowing you'd rather be in that
Mhm.
moment, figuring it out, taking the punches, giving the punches, right, in life. Like you'd rather be there than not. And that's like embrace it's fear is still very much like, don't get me wrong, it's still very much one of the bricks, right, that you're
Mhm.
building, and it's part of it. And sometimes the dial is up higher on it than other times, but there are more considerations now. And I do think coaching and just being in conversation with women who were working through really complex and layered decisions, and anchoring those decisions to something so that you could kind of stand firm and weather the storm of what might come as a result of that. That was all the Breakthrough and Begin coaching. And I think there's this other thing that comes up for me around Dreamer is the willingness and a knowing that you're gonna take up more space than you have previously. You're gonna occupy more space. You're gonna say more things. You're gonna be a larger presence. You're gonna go further than you have before. And part of, I picture kind of like sitting on the edge of something and knowing like that little moment where your feet kind of teeter just a bit, because that's the moment where you're like, once I go, I'm showing everybody, I'm showing my cards, right? I'm showing what I can do. I'm showing what my value really is. And to some extent, like you can't you can't go back. Once people know what you're capable of, you've just leveled up, and then you have to own it and you have to embrace it, and you have to acknowledge that you're capable of that. Um, And that's a lot. That's a lot to process. Because, hey, I wanted to retreat a few times. I wanted to be like, "Oh, can I go back on the roller coaster ride? Because I didn't know this was gonna happen." And you just surrender and you let it be, you let it take you somewhere. And I guess that's the other part of it, right? Is that you're not attaching. Dreamer to me is not attaching to an outcome. Like it has to look this way. I think it really is that journey element. It's willing to embrace whatever comes and know that you've built yourself. Um, you've built yourself in such a way that you might not be able to predict what it is, but you know that you're going to be able to stand in it. You're going to be able to work through it, not because you've made a plan and anticipated it, but because of all the other work that you've done prior. uh, that's really important, I think, as well.
That's really interesting. And I, I've been thinking a lot about what it means to dream and how important that is and how essential it is. I mean, in hearing you speak about this not being tied to the outcome and then just knowing that it is a risk to play bigger, do you think that women in particular don't let themselves dream enough? I mean, don't put themselves in the arena. Do we count ourselves out before we even start dreaming because it is
Katie,
scary?
how much time do we have?
Not asking for myself or any, like, but Does anyone else do this?
I think this is where I wish we had a room full of people to just say, like, what are the reasons that you've kept yourself safe?
Mm,
Like, what are the reasons that you've kept you've kept yourself back from that toe line and the leap forward? Like, what are those things that keep us from doing the thing that we know we're meant for, or that we know we need, but that guard us, right? That, and I do think there's this element of predictability and comfort, where even if where we are isn't necessarily serving us in the best way, at least we know what's going to happen the next day. At least we know how to guard against it. At least we know our role, and like how we need to show up in it. And like, I can use myself as an example of, like, think of my journey the last 3-ish years of kind of recognizing that whether I wanted to or not, like, a shift had to happen for our family for a number of different reasons that we don't have time for. But it wasn't like a light switch went on where I'm like, well, I'm going to go get a different job. It was like these small moments of, frankly, just paying attention and feeling it. And I think maybe we numb ourselves into not having to feel those things. And by numb, it can mean a whole, like, right, that's a whole other conversation. But I think it's paying attention to what your body is telling you. And I think we have gut feelings, and we have moments of clarity that we want to kind of push away, because if we bring them in and we look at them, it just means we have to make choices. And when we have to make choices, that's when we have to change things. And when we change things, that means that there's a ripple effect out to our life and our people. And that, like, every step along the way has pieces. And I think about the decisions that I made. I also really counted on my people, right? Like, I didn't, I revealed a lot to both of you of just why I was thinking about making a certain decision, why I was thinking about getting a different job, that I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what the next 6 months were going to look like, but just being willing to see and try. And then I would have a different understanding, and then I can make a next decision, whatever that looked like. But a lot of that had to do with the people that I was surrounded by, and all of those people were my champions. All of those were people who wanted me to be my best and my most authentic and truest self. All of those were people who wanted me to be happy and fulfilled, and wanted me to be living my values. And I am so grateful for that.
But that's such a real example too, because I think sometimes when we think of dreaming, it's like we clear the decks and it's this one thing and it's a clear path. But I mean, you were navigating through challenges, and it's not like you were in a silo just making a
Yeah,
decision on like how to make a change or embrace a new beginning or start a new dream. It's like you were dreaming and making plans and taking risks within challenges. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But with that difference.
totally. And I think, I mean, total truth of it is, when Jason and we were two small business owners, and the weight of that, the volatility of that, when it's good. But when it's not, you're trying to solve for all those challenges while raising 3 kids, showing up, in all of these other ways. And initially, so that's the challenge, right? You're looking at it and you're like, God, what is this? What does this mean for us? And, is it dreaming, or is it just like hashing through the muck of life, right? Where you're like, okay, what do we want to do about this? And you put all these options on the table, and I really, really value the work that I've done in paying attention to what feels good and what I'm resisting. Because sometimes what you're resisting is actually the stuff that you should be paying attention to, right? So all of this was bubbling up for me, thinking that maybe Jason would have to make a change. And in reality, it was me. I was the one who kind of finally said, what if I look for something? Like, I don't know what that means. I had no answers. I had no path, but saying it out loud suddenly made it a possibility. Like, what could that look like? And that's like that pulling the thread of, I don't know. I don't no idea. I haven't looked for a job in a decade. I don't even know. I don't even have a resume. I have none of these things. But it was saying it out loud where you're thinking, I mean, what the hell do I have to lose? Right. And that's like dare to dream, right? That was a lot of our conversation of like, why not? Why not? What's like, what's it going to hurt to walk this out a little bit and see what's possible? And yeah, I mean, I actually really, really love my job, and I'm really fulfilled, and I'm providing and I'm teaching in a completely different way than Fellow Flowers was, but it's still the through line of my job is to tell the story of this place, you know, at the college. And I I don't know. And like that's today's moment, right? And then you just kind of stay open and you keep paying attention to whatever might be next. Windy roads.
Well, I think you also have illustrated so much the complexities for me about what dreaming really is. And I think there's a lot that's misunderstood about dreaming. And I'm wondering if you have ever felt
Mm,
that and could maybe speak
well,
a little bit into that. Because I think sometimes you say, like, I'm a dreamer, or you think about songs that have been written about dreamers, and people instantaneously go to something like, somebody who's laying in a field staring, at the clouds, which, by the way, there is a lot of benefit to that. And I
right.
will say, as someone who, spent many years as working as a mental health professional, there is benefit to doing that. But I also think sometimes you say I'm a dreamer, and that gets very mixed up into misconceptions about it. And I think you've illustrated some of those, but maybe if you could speak into
Or
those conceptions about dreaming.
yes, the misperceptions of it's light and easy, right? That dreaming is the easy part, um and that it's easy to do. And we talk a lot about like dreaming is one part, but doing it is the other. And like there's something else about dreamer. And Katie, I wrote this down so you'll be very like I had the thought because I knew driving like, oh, Katie would want me to write this down. But
Thank you.
I know you were very welcome. I wrote down your dream is personal and it should not be chased or understood by consensus.
Mhm.
And like what I mean by that is it your dreams are so personal and they are stacked on top of your life experiences, your decisions that you've made, your beliefs, your thoughts about those beliefs, your values. And so when we give away our power or we ask people permission if our dream is like checks all of their boxes or feels appropriate to them, they can't look at it through your lens. They're going to look at your dream and they're going to evaluate it based on their fears or their story, their values, the roads that they've traveled that didn't work out. And so they're going to warn you not to chase something based on what didn't work for them. And like, how does that serve you? And I've come home to that of my dreams are really personal and they're built on my life experience. and to pursue them by consensus and to make sure that everybody's on board and everybody understands. It's a waste of effort, and it's going to dilute the sharpness of and the magic of what you want. And the more we ask for opinion, approval, right? Am I doing this right? Does this look appropriate? Am I good at dreaming? Like, we just give away all of our power. And so I have focused more on that for myself, but also for, I would say, for my girls too, right? When you're trying to build a foundation for any person you care about, you know, for me, it's my three girls. It's be intentionally personal with it, and the people that you're asking approval from should have the same crazy views of what's possible in life. It's just so much power to give away to somebody, particularly if they don't have capacity to look around the corner like you might, or to think big like you might be. And that's the company that you keep. So when you're sharing these crazy ideas and these dreams, think really hard and critically about who that precious audience is going to be, because big dreamers and crazy thinkers are that's a precious viewpoint to get close to. So that for whatever that's worth. And the example I would give is watching my daughter make a really, really hard choice with a sport, right? She had been part of a team that we all loved. Like, I love them all. Great experience for her. A lot worked around her because she was at a certain level, right? So she, in a lot of ways, like, she had more control and power because of her role. And sitting with her and talking to her about a choice she was going to make to move to a different team and have less of a visible, like, scoring all the points role, but probably better growth and experience for what I think her longer term goals are, but having to sit with her in that. And I am used to asking everybody, what do you think we're doing the right thing? I mean, do you think this is the right decision for her? Because all I want is validation that I'm a good parent, that I'm not screwing my kid up, that I'm making a good, like, that's all I want. So recognizing that's where that awareness piece comes in. Like, why would I be asking this person who's not in my shoes, who doesn't know Allie, who doesn't understand the context? Why am I asking for permission right now? What do I really want? I just want to know that I'm a good parent. So, time out. I'm a good parent. I'm doing the best I can. And the people that we ended up asking for advice were other families who had been in that same dream journey. They were other families who had kids that wanted what Allie wants and had a similar persona of what Allie has. And they spoke directly into her journey and her dream and what was possible. They reminded us we were not crazy. They told us, like, go for it. What do you have to lose? And those were the voices we listened to, rather than consensus and approval from everyone else that was just going to tell us what they thought, but not what Allie needed. That was a big moment for us as a family of shore this up, tuck this in. What do we really want? What does Allie really want? Still a super hard decision, but outcome so far today, as of this moment, has been pretty good.
Well, how did you work with Allie in helping her decide what her dream was and if she should go for it too? What was, I mean, how did you, I'm sure there were some amazing
but for real though,
conversations.
what were the exact steps?
any tips for others going through that? But truly, like, what if other people are either guiding or helping someone else figure out whether they should jump into following their dream, or if someone maybe even stuck with they feel like maybe there is something more, but they don't know how do you nudge
So
your forward?
I will give you the advice that was given to me that is now going to be imprinted like everywhere. You're either going to make the right decision or you're going to make the right decision.
Oh.
Like that's what it came down to. Like there was no, Allie's a great kid. Like she knows what she wants,
Mm.
right? So she's either going to do this and it's going to be great and she's going to fly and we're going to be like, well, that wasn't so hard. Or it's going to show us something different and point us in a different direction. But that's also not a bad thing. That's going to just help us know what we don't want. So it was reminding her she's whole and complete.
Mm.
Like the decision that we make, it's not going to be about whether or not she's good at X, Y, or Z. The decision we make is the decision. And then we move into that decision, and wherever that takes us is going to be the right move. Because I think if you waste time thinking about the pro con list, then you're thinking about two different directions all the time. And be where your feet are. I think of Karen all the time when I say that. Be where your feet are and make the decision, step into that decision and know that it's going to be right because you're going to make it so. And that's what we kept telling Allie is it's either the right decision or it's the right decision. Like there are no wrong moves here. You are a great kid. You love this sport. You work really hard. And those statements of empowerment really got her into a place of not looking for the reasons. Like we didn't want to set it up where the first thing that didn't go well or perfect, that she was going to start pointing to the con list and be like, see, like shouldn't have done it. Like none of those seeds got planted. We did not even go there. It was like, we got to be all in and we got to the toes, right? I keep going back to that. Like, let's go, all of us. And we haven't really looked back. And I think that would be my advice, no matter if it's helping your kid navigate a hard decision or taking a job that might mean a completely different lifestyle, or do I move across country? The self-belief and the self-knowing, like it's either right or it's right, and you'll figure it out.
Well, it kind of like to me, I'm thinking about how dreams and like where you're headed or your goals are they're very connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think um I'm wondering if you like if you feel if that's coming up for you too. Like as I'm listening to you talk and I'm just thinking about a conversation I was literally having. I literally said to my 27-year-old, I'm going to have to end this conversation, but I will be happy to talk with you as soon as it's over because I have to get on a call. But it was the same thing when you said take a job or not. It's
Mm.
and I said there's not a wrong decision.
You got it. Yeah.
Like it's either going to be the right job or it's going to teach you something about what the next job should be.
Yeah. And wouldn't you rather know that now at like 27, what you don't want in a work culture, what you don't want the expectations to look like? If it's not a good fit, I think the best gift we give our kids is showing them what a good fit looks like, and that's values. So like what matters to you, what's going to drive your decisions, what are your non-negotiables? Because then when they get into those situations, they're going to have a knowing. And they're going to be the ones to kind of self-exit and off-ramp and be like, not for me. I know better. I deserve better. I've felt better than this. And that's also the really hard part about parenting, because you're also then choosing not to save them from things that don't work out.
Yeah. And when you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, were you listening to that
Promise
conversation
I
I
was
was
not.
just having? Because it was the same thing. It was like, well, and I wasn't asking so much about the nitty-gritty details. I was like, well, but how did you feel there? And how did the people, what were you dreaming? And I literally said the words, what were you dreaming for yourself when you said
Mm.
yes to that interview? And
Mhm.
then and she kept trying to go into pros and cons, and I'm like, let's just stop that for just a second. Let's talk about, like, what did you feel and what did the culture feel like?
Yeah.
Um, and it was the same sort of thing.
But
Mm.
I love what you asked, Jen, that like, what were you dreaming? What were you envisioning? Like, what did you want? Because I don't think we always, or at least at that age, I don't think I always did. You know, I
I
think
think
I
that's
look
I
back
think
on
that's
some of
why
my
we make that's why
dreams
we make
where,
the list,
yeah,
right? Because that's easier than having to sit with the like, well, what do I want? And then having to come to terms with,
yeah,
I don't know what I want.
right.
And oh my gosh, are you telling me that I missed a step and I have to now sit and get that locked in so that I can make these decisions?
Hmm. But I
And I
think
Yeah.
just
it's so
also want
essential
to,
for
I will
women.
also would like to fully acknowledge, since we are on a call, that, well, it's not just the three of us, that she is in a privileged position where she has several opportunities in front of her right now.
I'm
Mhm.
not surprised.
She is she's a psychologist, finishing um her PsyD. So
Mm.
she, you know, obviously we need mental health professionals in the world. So she does have that opportunity to kind of think about what kind of culture and how does she really want to serve people right now. So I do want to acknowledge that. I know not everyone gets that opportunity. So,
Mm.
Well,
but
and
I think it's important to
mhm.
sometimes those two things do go hand in hand. Like, as you're trying to achieve your goals, what is it that you're I just that's what was coming up for me, was how do dreams and achieving goals go hand in hand? And I
No,
wondered if
and
maybe you could speak about that.
it's a good question. And I think that's where, like, we talked about this a lot with coaching, right? Where you are looking out at a horizon, right? So you don't know the next stop, but you've got this horizon point out in the distance, and you know in general that is where you are headed. And I think that idea of what does your horizon look like, and you picture it, right? Like you're heading towards something, and you know that there are going to be a lot of detours. Some of those detours might be a while, but in general, there is a sense of knowing of where you want to go and what you want that life to look like. And I think fundamental to that is, what are your values? And if you know what you value, those decisions become easier and easier as you navigate. And it all comes back to that for me, right? You're going to be dreaming, and I think that dream represents that further away kind of sense of what life might look like and feel like.
Mhm.
And then along the way, I think there are these pauses and these stops along that represent those more shored up, clearer goals that you're you're hoping to achieve. Let's be real. Like, you want some sense of accomplishment along the way, and those are the markers, and that's getting you closer. But that flexibility of knowing, you might come this way or you might come in this way, but
Mm.
you're getting towards that direction. And in thinking about myself and thinking about Jason and all of the conversations and dreaming conversations we've had, it sounds like ease. We want ease. Okay, so we're going to have to make decisions that are built around ease. Uh, we want, and ease can then be qualified, or like specific to that would be, um like, we probably don't want to live in this house forever, because that's not going to make it easy to go and visit with our kids. And they're all going to be going, they want to go off to college and they want to do all these things, and we doesn't sound like they want to be close to here. So do we want to be close to here? How do we make that easy?
Mhm.
It's like random practical stuff like that. And when you drill it down, then it's okay, well, we're going to have to sell our house at some point if we want ease to travel, to be able to be with our kids as they age and try new things and be supportive of what they need, but not be like too close to them because no kid wants their parent like next door, that type of thing. Ease feels like having work that can be done at a laptop and not a fixed space. We own 608 threads right now. Like that's going to have to change in the next 5 years, right? If the structure of it so that Jason's not physically there all of the time. Okay, that's going to be a decision that we will have to make. All towards ease and simplicity and not having a lot of the stuff that we have right now that we need right now because we've got 3 kids and I could probably count 10 backpacks in my mudroom right now. Like it's that kind of stuff where you're thinking eventually those things start to fall off. You need less space, you need less stuff. It's more simple. You can make decisions faster. You can be where you want to be quicker, stuff like that. That's what I think is that deeper layer that we don't always dive into to get to your point, Jen, of like, well, what does a goal look like versus the horizon? And like, what's the difference between those two?
So I love that insight into like how you're currently dreaming
Well,
and
and ask me tomorrow, it could change. That's the
dream.
fun thing.
And isn't that the beauty of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
guess, as we kind of think about like what do we want women to take away, I'm wondering like what would you want just a woman sitting there and thinking about like how does she like take all this, right? Take this flower, these what I'm trying to count how many lines, 4 lines, 5 lines about Dreamer. And,
Mm-hmm.
as which is the point of our whole mantra series, right? Is we want women to kind of dig a little deeper and just see that there's something maybe that you can latch on with every flower,
Yes.
flowers that you didn't necessarily think were yours, and to maybe find something, some nugget. What would you want women to maybe understand? Some thought from all of this about
Jen.
Dreamer. I know. I'm sorry. I mean, we're coming up on 45 minutes. That was our goal, right? So
That was
what
the
would we
goal.
want women to understand or take away about Dreamer?
It's just so personal. It's just so personal. And to not give that power away to anybody and to keep such a sense of self and story when thinking about dreams, decisions, changes, what ifs. Um, it's personal. Don't give that power away. And then I would also, I don't know who's gonna listen to this, but I'm going to center the woman that is in a place where her toes are teetering, okay? And she's thinking and she's considering. And I would remind her that she's allowed to trust herself. Give her just because she knows, you already know, the woman listening, you already know the reason you're teetering is likely because you know what's going to happen next, right? That next thing that keeps us from taking a leap or making a change. It's the next thing that you're going to have to deal with. And I think that's why we stay safe. I think that's why we stay stuck. I think we're thinking at 10 steps ahead. That's what women do. What if you just made the next step forward towards that dream? And then get there, sit with it, and then make the next step. And don't overthink it. Think about it a little bit, but don't overthink it. And interestingly, I won't say who this is, but I had a friend text me last night who was considering a new job. And big move, big decision. I don't hear from this friend often, but we are very close, and she knows that she can always text me these random things, right? And I sent her a quote, and this is what I would say to whomever is listening right now too. You already know you have what it takes. Stand in that, own that, believe that, trust it, and lean into it. And I think that kind of sums it up for me right now too. You already know you have what it takes, right? Lean into it. And then I did some inappropriate language and some fun memes and some things I'm not going to share right now, but it was like a moment of like, come on, we're overthinking this. You know you have what it takes. Go in there and own this interview. And then she texted me that she got the job and she got the offer. So, right? Like she teetered, she stepped in, and she owned it. That's what I wish for all women. I wish, and like everyone, not just women, but I think of us, I think of our community, I think of my girls. It's this sense of like, you deserve to be in these spaces. You deserve to be in those interviews. You own it. Own it. I think if we all did that, it just would make this idea of dreaming big even easier and more accessible and more known. We would see women making bold moves and big choices. And then it just kind of reaffirms that we can do the same thing.
Love it.
I think that's perfect. Especially in our year of Dare To. I think that's the perfect ending message. Thank you.
This has been fun. I loved it.
It has. Well, that's why we're doing it, right? Why we're letting people in. I
Okay,
mean, how many times have we had these conversations and now we're just
like
hitting
you,
record?
it's like you two know what you're doing or something. It's wild.
Well,
it's like
I think
you guys
I think
know.
maybe we've learned from the best.
Oh,
Mhm.
you guys are amazing.
All right.
I love you both. You know that. I'm so thankful for you both every single day.
Same.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording. So bye everybody.
Bye.